Hello, and this week on the Udder Twaddle podcast, it's raining Mando patties.
Is that official? No.
Something like that.
No, episode 4, we're supposed to talk about music. That's what we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
But we do have a special guest.
Yes, we do.
We have a Rayne with us.
We have a Rayne with us.
You do?
Yes.
Just this time.
She's not an animal. She's like the dew on the morning grass. Rayne.
Okay, yeah.
That's one way to put it, I guess.
Yeah. Some of you that maybe, kind of listening may remember Rayne from the IRC channel, from the
way back in the War Radio days.
Chats.
You might have known her.
Yes, got her sitting in for our little bull session here.
We drug her into this.
Yeah.
It's all our fault.
Oh, please. I'm crashing it and you know it. It's what I do.
All right.
Well, thanks for having me on.
No problem. You're always welcome.
Always welcome.
Always welcome. Okay, so our topic for today is going to be music.
Yes.
I thought we'd start with a quick synopsis of each of us of what music influenced you in your life.
Right. Last week we were talking about action movies, and part of that we talked about the soundtrack and scores, of a good action movie, which got us thinking about other areas of music genres, the various decades and influences, and
just music in life. What experience you have, and I generally think that life should have a soundtrack of its own, like musicals, but that's a whole other topic.
Yes. The kind of music you grew up listening to, what your personal preferences are.
Well, when you were young, you didn't get a choice in your music taste.
No.
I mean, like when you're a baby in the womb up until, you can actually turn the knob on a radio, you don't have a choice.
They allowed you to touch the knobs when you were a kid?
Well, it's like, don't touch that.
Certain knobs.
Well, at least until you got your own stereo in your room when you were that brooding, pensive preteen or teenager.
Oh, shoot. No, they gave me a little radio when I was a kid.
Oh, no. My parents did not let me have any control over the music at all.
Well, no, I think it was a gift at one point. This was way, way back before they had, Walkmans and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a little box
the era
radio.
Of the transistor radio.
Yes.
Yes.
And I personally, I'm Cowpatty, if you didn't get it. Did we actually introduce ourselves this time around?
I don't know.
Oh, anyway. That's Cowmando, Cowpatty, and Rayne. Okay, now you get our names. All right, so.
Let's do this a little out of order. I think I've already thrown things completely.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
Sliding into the podcast.
But when I was an itty bitty cow, I grew up in Detroit area.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, for about 10 years or so before I came down to Texas. So, my youngest experiences were stealing my mom's tapes and listening to, Motown and Rockin' Robin and stuff like that. And then when I had an actual radio, I got to listen to stuff like Salt and Pepper and Sir Mix-a-Lot and all the really good old R&B music and stuff of the ages. So that really, I don't know, that influenced me a lot. What was it, the NSYNC era of boy bands came out, I didn't listen to any of that stuff at all. I liked Run DMC. So
good choice.
But my dad was big into classical music, so I also had that exposure. He always had us listen to classical, and my mom listened to gospel, and so I had a very weird mesh of music tastes, and I still do. I like everything from rock, hard rock. I went to a grunge phase. To you introducing me to Typo Negative and Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that. So it was I'm all over the place.
Yeah, that just makes you a well-rounded human being. You can talk to anybody.
I love that.
See, that's the cool thing about it.
You introduced me to country music.
My diet made me a well-rounded human being.
Well, that probably came from your parents, too.
Yes.
Well, I mean, you're keeping the tradition because you cook rather well, I must say.
Thank you.
So.
I love having guests that can appreciate good cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And baking.
Yes.
I love being able to appreciate it.
But, well...
For you...
For me, I remember having my own radio in my bedroom when I was 5.
Seriously?
Yes.
Wow.
I had my own radio.
God,
I had my
lucky.
own little black and white TV.
Oh my God.
This was back,
Were your parents just really progressive or what?
Wait. No, his dad worked in the oil field when he was younger. So he had money.
This makes
Lucky.
sense. Okay, I get it now.
It was a small black and white TV. Jeez, don't black and white here, people.
Still, it was a TV.
And it was yours.
It's like telling...
the TV itself was black and white. It was a white TV with a black face. And
in a modern comparison, that's like giving a 2-year-old an iPhone right now.
Yeah.
I mean, back then it was like, you had a TV?
I am old. This was, the early to mid 70s. But, for the most part, growing up, I had to listen to whatever my parents were listening to until...
You kind of get stuck with it.
I kind of, had ended up with my own radio where I could bounce around stations and listen to different stuff. Growing up, my mother listened to rock music.
What, like Elvis Presley rock 70s. Music? Or are you talking
Big
about
Elvis fan, Beatles fan, but this was during the 70s.
Janis Joplin.
There's a difference, yes.
So, there was a lot of the, guitar rock, a lot of the disco stuff, growing up listening to the Bee Gees and stuff like that. The era of Saturday Night Fever when it came out the Bee Gees and stuff like that. My father, at the time, was a big country fan. So
country then, though, was different from country now.
Yes. I grew up listening to Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, early Kenny Rogers, George Jones, Tammy Wynette, Barbara Mandrell, old, Oak Ridge Boys, the Statler Brothers, a lot of that stuff. I used to love watching, the Porter Wagner show.
If anybody doesn't know what this is, Google is your friend.
Yes.
Just
Porter Wagner, old classic Dolly Parton stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Before the boob job. Well,
is there any point in her career that you could say that it was before a boob job? Because
she's always been pretty
fairly
hefty.
Blessed.
Yes. But listen to a lot of that. Grew up kind of watching, Hee Haw with, Buck Owens.
Oh, God. I watched reruns of Hee Haw.
Yes.
When I was little.
Great stuff.
This is funny.
I started off getting a good mix of country and rock, and I just kind of, stuck with it. They really didn't listen to a whole lot of, like, classical music or anything. I didn't get into,
Well, my parents were music majors in college, so they both loved
much
music,
later in life. But, of course, my, formative teenage years were during the 80s, so...
You had the Hairspray.
It was
era.
all about the glam rock and the hair metal. And,
I'm slightly past you on that. Like I hit the tail end, like Madonna, and then.
Well, and the early to mid '80s, it really got good. When I hit junior high, that's whenever I found like Motley Crue and Rat and Van Halen, through that whole era. But shortly after that, this was about 85, 86, my parents flipped a complete 180 and went religiously fanatical.
That was the era when they believed that every bit of music was evil and it was the devil, and they played the records backwards and all that mess.
Backmasking, But my parents went super religious, dove headfirst into the church and changed our lives completely. Mm-hmm. That was the point where every Wednesday night we were in church. Every Sunday night we were in church. If there was a church service, we were at church.
So you were exposed to gospel music at a point.
Well, that's when, I kind of got introduced to gospel music because they went so far off the deep end, in my opinion, that if it was not Christian music, we couldn't listen to it. Yeah. We had to give up all of our rock music. They wanted us to get rid of all of our, cassette tapes. This was pre-CD.
It was a very famous era of just fear and confusion by parents.
Mm-hmm. They went crazy. We had to give up TVs. We couldn't go to movies. We gave up all music.
Now that's just... Never mind. I won't get into that. Yeah. But let's go back to music on this.
But, it was right whenever, like I said, the Van Halen, Motley Crue,
My point of rebellion with that religious thing is
1984 album from Van Halen. And
my brother had an AC/DC album, and I listened to that like crazy, and I loved it. Just thunderstruck. Oh, it was rebellious at my youngest age.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I would get little bits of, it wasn't truly, pirate radio, but I would get little bits and pieces, of rock music from friends and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Until they kind of, loosened their grip a bit around, I don't know,
Late 80s, probably.
Yeah,
90s,
late 80s,
maybe.
88, 89.
Mm-hmm.
Because I, you know, was...
That's when things started petering off and they didn't worry about that as much.
Midway through high school, about the time that, like, Poison started coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Poison had come out. There were...
Guns N' Roses, probably?
Yeah, Guns N' Roses came out about that same time.
Yeah.
A few other, bands. Blue Tears came out about 90. Steelheart, Firehouse were some of the big bands that I was listening to at that time, But it's pretty much, stayed, a good mix of rock and country.
You pretty much stuck with rock and country for your whole life, yeah.
But as part of that growing up, I, earlier in their lives, my parents had listened to a lot of old rock and roll. Oldies, 50s, 60s, prior to me being born in 71.
Mm-hmm.
So they liked listening to a lot of the oldies. So early in my life, I got introduced to, the old school rock and roll of the late 50s whenever it first kicked off.
50s, 60s, and stuff like that, yeah.
Up through, the hippie flower power, rock of the 60s and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I've had, access to the full range of rock and country pretty much all my life.
Well, but the funny thing is that people say that music is kind of the universal language. And the truth of the matter is...
Well, that's true.
Well, think about it. If you hear a song, it automatically takes you to a memory of some sort. It may not be a huge memory, but you may remember dancing in, out underneath the tents or something out when you were camping with family or something like that. But
that's true.
Music kind of brings you just to a place with family and friends and moments in history, I mean, I grew up with my parents. Well, we were a military family, and my mom really loved Motown. My dad liked it as well, but he was kind of like your dad. He was into country and did all the older country stuff for a while. I can remember lots of Kenny Rogers. I remember spinning it on vinyl. So
wow.
we weren't even cool enough to have tapes yet. But we played lots of Motown.
Records in my house.
Oh gosh, yeah, I'm telling you,
tons of records.
I would kill to have my parents' vinyl collection now. I don't even know whatever happened with them, but I mean, we would get up every Saturday morning with my mom, and we would clean the entire house. We were in a 2-story house, and we would clean the entire day, and it would be nothing but Motown music. And I mean, it'll make you move. It'll get it done fast.
That groove will get you going.
But I can remember having my first music, my own personal stuff back in like the early 80s. I got some of the Flock of Seagulls, and when Madonna came out, I had some of that. I had Michael Jackson. Oh my God. I had
every Michael Jackson album.
I'm telling you, there was just something about Michael. He was really awesome. I just loved that music back then. Oh yeah.
Oh God. Yes.
But the cool thing about the 80s music, we were talking a little bit about that. In the 80s, there was such an explosion of different types of music. I mean, they'd already had kind of you had country, you had rock, you had Motown.
Disco era.
And there was just a little bit of that. But then all of a sudden you had different kinds of rock. You had R&B coming out. You had rap music that was a totally different rap than what we have today.
When you get Def Leppard, I mean, how do you kind of classify some of it?
That's what I'm saying. There was such an explosion of different types of music.
Well, in the early 80s, you had that electronic synth where everything had a synthesizer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's different than auto-tune. Despite what people like to try to say now, it's not the same thing.
Synth is not auto-tune. No. Auto-tune is cheating.
Yes, exactly. But I look back on that time and I laugh because I had so many different influences. My cousins came to visit us when we were in Little Bitty, Tennessee, this little tiny town in the middle of nowhere. My cousins were military and they had been posted all over the world. They came in with their cassette tape of Salt and Pepper.
Oh, I had all I had their albums.
I had never heard Push It before in my life. Oh, girl.
Yes.
Don't even get me started. But we were sitting on the front porch at Thanksgiving. And my cousins came in. I had my radio that I finally got my own radio. We were out on the front porch and my cousins put that in and my dad walked out and heard that song and I thought his head was going to explode because they managed to keep me away for most of it. We moved from our post in California when my dad retired, moved back to Tennessee, and I think he thought he was going to get a handle on some of the stuff we were going to get exposed to.
Nope.
Music kind of moves everywhere, so you really don't have that option.
Can you imagine what it is like now trying to suppress what a kid listens to?
Oh, there's no way.
It's impossible.
No, because there are too many sources of music now.
I mean, back then it was like you're limited to like 20 channels of decent music.
Yeah, of whatever you can find, just on terrestrial radio. But now you've got
streaming services.
Terrestrial radio. You've got satellite radio. You can stream satellite radio on the internet. You can get an app for your phone.
Yeah.
You can, stream on
Spotify.
Spotify.
Spotify and all these other channels.
Apple Music. And you've got, Google Play where you can stream, different channels. iHeartRadio. Yeah, there are so many different sources, for streaming music now that it's virtually impossible
from getting exposure to something.
Yeah, exactly. To lock down the exposure. They're going to listen to what they want to listen to.
But the funny thing about that part too, though, is that, like I was saying before, I can hear a song or even the first bars of a song and immediately go back to a moment, a memory, a person, an experience, or a feeling. These days, I'm not saying that there's not good music out there. There is some. But there's so much stuff out there that you're sifting through that really doesn't have a good base in the basics of music. A good voice, good actual instruments, good,
We had this discussion the other day. We were talking about how music now is almost about being a brand or an image or a look.
Yes.
It's less of the music. Whereas when you were in an era that didn't have MTV or before MTV
there was
or whatever.
Pure radio.
It was just radio. It was, the essence of how good it felt in your soul. It would made that music. It was like, does it sound good to you?
The talent,
Perfect.
the ability
it didn't matter how
of the
ugly
singer.
The singer looked.
It was about the music, not what the singer looked like. Because you can go back and, like we said, and we've had in personal discussions, you go back and look at some of the, great artists of, the
some
50s
of the earliest
and 60s
video
and
music,
70s.
They were not pretty.
Fantastic singers. I mean, just great vocalists.
But they were on,
that are really kind of fugly. There's...
It's not meant to
not
be
really
sugarcoated. It's just meant to be like, look, because you've surpassed that. Your voice is the best. We're going to sign you because of your voice.
Your talent.
Because of what you look like.
Whereas most, I can't really say most, but a lot of modern, quote, quote, artists now, it's all about how they look. They're pretty. They're attractive people, and their vocals get cleaned up in the
American
studio
Idol
in post-processing.
You had to have the look and the sound.
Filtering to get them to sound good, to match the looking good, because of all of social media and,
That's what I call engineered music. It's just they engineer it to make it good for the masses.
Because back then...
It's not soul music. It's not in, real emotion. And I'm trying to think of good artists.
Yes. Back then, it didn't matter what they looked like because the only...
I'm going to say it wrong. Ed Sheeran? Is that his name?
No, that's correct.
Yeah,
okay, wow, I said it right.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran is not the prettiest guy in the world. I'm not saying he's ugly. But his voice makes him sexy.
Oh my God, yes it does.
His voice
very good voice.
And
his talent.
He's got soul.
He's 100% a musician.
But, back then, you didn't see the artist. You just heard them on the radio. Unless you saw them on, like, Ed Sullivan.
And there are
back
good
in the
gems
60s,
like that. Like Adele is one of those.
Absolutely.
Or was able to, catch a concert. Otherwise, you only heard them on the radio. You never saw those artists.
Right.
Now, you see them everywhere. They've got Twitter feeds, and they're on all the media. Anytime, they, trip over a crack in the sidewalk, there's a news report about it.
Well, that's just our instant news age we're in right now.
Exactly. The media coverage, you see anything and everything they do.
We have to go.
So it's about their visual image, not just, their singing ability and their talent.
Well, I'm going to go back a little bit and defend MTV for a second. Because, number one, people that are not familiar with the early ages of MTV...
When MTV was actually about music.
Hello, yes, exactly.
When it was all
there
videos.
Really were, and granted, that was when the trends started as far as you had to look good, you had to have a certain image, you had to be branded a certain way.
It's because the video...
But yeah, because
the radio star.
Yes and no. Because in some ways, being able to see the artist and see them convey what they were feeling in the music they were singing, because of the way that videos were made back then. I mean, yeah, you had some weird glam stuff that was very...
We have some off the wall type stuff, but it did allow for that extra creativity.
Right, absolutely. But you had an artist in front of you who had already established themselves, because at the time they were still signing people who had talent. It wasn't just about how they looked at the time. Now, I suspect, not that I've ever been in the music industry, but I mean, just imagine at that moment when things were just crossing over from music into video, you probably had some folks that weren't necessarily all that attractive, but then they had to get cleaned up because they were going to be on TV in one manner or another.
Well, and it not necessarily, attractive or not attractive, but image didn't match what you were hearing.
True.
Case in point, look at Rick Astley.
Oh, God.
From the 80s.
Are we going to rickroll these people?
No, I'm just saying.
No.
You look at Rick Astley, you see him, and you get this idea in your head, and then he opens his mouth and starts to sing, and just,
blows your
completely
mind.
Absolutely.
knocks you over.
Yeah.
Because you don't expect what you're seeing to belt out a voice like that.
So it was kind of like seeing House Judy open his mouth and suddenly you had Barry White. I mean, it was like, what the hell was that?
You're like,
so surprised.
It does not match. It doesn't fit. And it
your pre-concepts. But I think that's one of the cool things that came out of that as well, was the fact that you had to kind of open your mind a little bit to see that things are not cookie cutter. And like I say, I do believe that MTV was the start of things getting a little off the rails. But in the early days, when they first started it
was just something cool where you can actually see the people.
Something you could appreciate about your artists and enjoy their expressions of themselves. And it was a way for them to communicate their music differently.
I'm sorry for the snoring dog. I have tried to shake her repeatedly to wake up.
She's giving us her soundtrack. You leave her alone.
Okay.
Tonks has started snoring again.
So we'll just deal with that background
awesome.
noise.
Absolutely.
No.
But anyway, sorry, didn't mean to derail things there. I just had to go back and defend MTV for a second, because I'm sorry, kids. All of you who were born, in the 21st century, you totally got gypped. You missed out on some of the best music videos in the history of the world.
You're not necessarily gypped. You can actually go back and watch these things.
Oh yeah,
that's what the big thing about
it. Search YouTube and you can find videos.
You can find
everything.
all the videos of back then.
Again, and like you said, talking about you hear a song and it takes you back.
Oh yeah.
To a different point, a memory. And there are so many of those. I hear the song and I immediately remember the video that came out in those early to mid 80s. Whenever MTV was all about music videos, and they actually had VJs on.
Oh yeah,
between the videos,
downtown Julie Brown,
and
I loved her. Sorry,
all of those original VJs are now on satellite radio on 80s on 8.
Yeah, they still do that stuff on.
Do all
Sirius.
the DJing on the 80s channel.
Oh, I'm gonna have to go look at that now.
Yeah. I mean,
Nina Blackwood and all of them are.
They don't really have that many
Mark Goodman
video hosts anymore.
I mean, the original group whenever MTV first started. That first 4 or 5 of the VJs.
Right.
And I think Downtown Julie Brown is on 90s on 9.
That wouldn't surprise me. She was awesome.
She
her.
She DJs on 1 or 2 of the channels.
Yeah.
But they're still, doing the DJ thing for the 80s music.
I actually sat and watched MTV anymore, but, I mean, lately.
I haven't in ages.
So I'm fairly sure there's not even one music video or 2 that they still play, except, early in the morning when nobody's watching. Maybe.
Do they still play music anymore?
I have no idea.
I don't think so.
I think the go-to now to find music videos is YouTube.
Yeah.
I think to go check out
Vivo and YouTube.
Right. Yeah, any of the official music videos, you just go search it on YouTube now and you find it.
But all old
You're killing
videos
me over here, girl.
I just had his name and then it just evaporated.
I hate that.
Sledgehammer,
Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel, yes.
Oh yeah.
God, that iconic video, that was just Wow. That's a good snore, girl.
We have a background dog snoring. This is going to be interesting.
But yeah, iconic videos, and of course,
I don't know if we should be offended.
I don't know.
Everybody, knows the Thriller video.
Oh, duh.
Well,
the great, cinematic video.
They seriously. I'm sorry. Thriller is one of the greatest videos of all time. And it's also one of those songs that you never will change the channel. The moment you see it, you
have
to
see the whole thing. Absolutely.
And we were talking about that the other day of when you had radio. This is going to be amazing. When you had radio, and you still have radio now. If you're in the car, you're out doing stuff, and you're looking for good music, what makes you stop? What makes you just go, yes, I'm never changing the channel with that music? I mean,
those specific songs that everyone has.
Thriller is definitely one of them.
Yeah, when you're flipping channels and you hit that song, you stop and you finish listening to it.
I think most Michael Jackson music, just because that's my like era of music that I liked, and it was a compilation. I'll almost stop every time I listen to that.
Yeah, I mean, there are artists, like that you hear them, you stop and listen. But we were talking more on specific songs. You hear it, you feel like you have to stop. We were flipping channels in the car a couple of days ago.
Oh yeah, he was like, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop, go back."
Super Freak was on, Rick James, and she started changing the channel. I was like, wait a minute, back it up. You don't change channels on Super Freak.
No.
Super Freak.
You let Super Freak finish, and then you change the channel.
That is absolute blasphemy. I'm not entirely sure what kind of sins we assign you for that.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there are those certain songs you have to...
Well, I have to ask now, because we were talking also about how sometimes you've got that playlist for particular moods and moments that you're having. What is your, I need a happy song right now to get myself out of this mentality moment? Is there a particular song or a group
the ones
of
that
songs?
Just change your mood.
Yes.
To like, I've got to get out of this funk.
Do either of you have a particular one you can think of?
Believe it or not, this is the stupidest. My modern one that does this is the "Shake It Off" by like Taylor Swift.
I'm right there with you.
Because I just every time I hear it, it suddenly elevates my mood.
Right.
Because I'm like, whatever it is, I'm gonna shake it off.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Just
Taylor's a good one for that.
Or Weird Al Yankovic does it for me every time.
Weird Al is definitely
his version of "Tacky" is the best.
Is a good go-to set of music to get you out of a bad mood.
Well, he should be his own genre of music anyway.
Well,
I was listening to him, when he was like, eat it.
A lot of that, if I'm going looking for, feel-good music to get out of a bad mood, if I want to get out of the bad mood.
Sometimes you just want to dwell in the bad mood, and you're just sticking with heavy, depressing rock music.
I've got a playlist set up in my Google Play account that I'll go to that I've just got labeled as my country cruising for whenever I'm driving.
Yep.
And it's got Luke Bryan and Florida Georgia Line.
Oh, they're good.
Jason Aldean is in there. Got some good Tim McGraw in there.
Heck yeah.
That's my boy. good country party music.
Yeah.
To get me out of a bad mood.
Yeah.
If I'm just trying to push my way through a bad mood, if I'm really pissed off and I'm just trying to burn through it, to get to a point where I can come out of it towards getting into a good mood, then I'll throw on Disturbed. Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh yeah, the angry music.
Yes,
that
the good.
Just gets you.
Spend all of that energy.
Yes,
absolutely.
When you need to get it out.
And
I have a couple angry playlists. Too
Disturbed is one of my big go-tos. We were talking about the artists that are good vocalists. David Draymond is a fantastic vocalist.
Yes.
His voice and vocal control is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, he's an artist. He's an actual artist. He's not just a singer. He's not just an act.
No.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about when we're discussing real music versus some of the stuff that's marketed today.
My other go-to right now for that is Sully Erna, vocalist for Godsmack.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That man can sing as well.
Yeah.
He's got a good range, of stuff. Of all, I say stuff. Their, entire catalog of songs. You've got stuff like Voodoo, really slow, just continues to drive through, up into, some of their, harder and heavier stuff. And he's got a good range, just like David Draymond does.
See, and I was that way with that was my angry teenage years grunge music was my thing. So like the Nirvana and STP and Stone Temple Pilots, and I had all the albums, and when Green Day first came out.
Oh yeah.
Love Green Day. I will listen to anything Green Day. But it's it brings me back to that mood of sullen, I need to just get this out kind of mood. But sometimes I'm just not in that mood.
Right. But
they were artists. They were great singers, great people.
And and those two, in particular I mentioned, they're also, I mean, if you sit and listen to interviews and listen to them talk about their opinions and, where they're coming from, their source of, influence and why they do what they do and how they are as people, they're actually cool people. That. They're good people.
Right.
You would think, all of the, heavy metal and, hard rockers and stuff, of the 80s, they kind of get this image, of being these bad boys and, you expect them to be, rough and, kind of asshole-ish. No, these are, just really good, level-headed, good people. They just happen to sing a particular style.
Every artist has, like, their own influence. I mean, like, back when, there's always influences to another artist, to another artist, to another artist. Yes. I mean, like, what was I listening to the other day? Like, Papa Roach took over one of the Sirius XM channels.
Yeah.
And they were talking about their influences, and you were, like, thinking it's older than the 60s music to now. That's their influence. I wonder what, like, the next artist is going to be, what the modern influence is going to be. Because you wonder if you can see some of the influences of, like, pop artists now is Madonna. And you could see Bruno Mars' influence from,
James Brown.
James Brown, yes. Yeah. Like, you can see in Michael Jackson.
Yes, absolutely.
You can see those influences meld together.
What was it? Lady Gaga. One of her big influences was Freddie Mercury. Yes. And you can tell from her performances, of just being way out there.
Completely flamboyant.
And just over the top. And yes, celebrating that, embracing it, and just running with it like Freddie Mercury did. And, I mean, you can tell some influences. You can see it, in the way they perform. You can hear it in the types of songs they write.
Well, you can also see the homages they pay to their influences and their idols and their icons in some of the things that they do. And I know this is blasphemy to some people, but we were also talking about, the remakes and the covers that we were seeing. Now, I am not a giant fan of covers. I have gotten a little ill with a few of my favorite artists for trying certain things, and I won't name any names.
Well, because some people just like the original. Now there are some people that elevate the original to a different level or make it their own.
Exactly,
and that's perfectly fine.
I mean, I can think of 2 cases of those personally. We were talking about
recent covers, and traditionally I have not been a huge fan of covers.
I was trying to remember
there
what I was thinking of myself.
A few handfuls that well, I can't say handfuls, but maybe a handful of covers that I really, really like. That, like I said, I think they have kind of transcended and gone beyond the original.
Well, and there's some of them out there that step into something you would never have thought. Who was the artist that redid, or the group actually, that redid Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal?
Alien Ant Farm.
Oh, yes.
And I love that.
I love that.
Yes.
And I love the original.
They just kind of changed the arrangement, and
just enough to make it little bit.
It kind of, spiced it up a bit.
Exactly.
And
but I still love both. They didn't take away from the original.
Different energy.
No, absolutely. It was wonderful. Same thing with the current one from Disturbed. I mean, Simon and Garfunkel, who would have thought
The Sound of Silence, yes.
Yes.
Who would have ever put that
in that
together?
music?
Oh my God. But then that goes back again to him not being an actual artist and having true talent. But
well, like, and the other day I was listening to Bad Wolves, their cover of the Cranberries' Zombie.
Oh
my
God,
yes.
Oh, it's
another
so good.
Fantastic.
Still makes me cry.
Fantastic cover.
Yeah. I can't. Watching the video for that makes it even more so for me. I loved Dolores. I know that she freaked out a lot of people going off on her political tangents and things like that. But honestly, I loved the Cranberries when they came out. I listened to probably their first 3 or 4. I owned their first 3 or 4, I think. And it had been a while since I'd listened to them. Linger is still one of my all-time favorites. Oh, yes. That is one of my songs that I will sit and belt that out in the car and have my own little concert. If y'all
There's always a song that you will belt out at full volume.
Oh, yes.
Always.
That one and anything by Mary J. Blige. I'm sorry. That's just those are my feel-good things. I'm dancing in the car. I mean, it's not just a concert, y'all. It is a full-on dance performance. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. If you see her driving down the road, you need to pull out your phone and get it.
Let's please don't. So far, I've been fortunate.
Or pull over and get out of her way.
That's probably more accurate right there. But I mean, it's amazing to me that there really is some good music out there that's modern, and you can hear the influence from all of the old stuff that we know.
There's so many modern artists that, like, I'm not saying my exposure is great, because I do half the time listen to older music channels, like the flashback channels, but I need a good mix of modern. There's one or two on the radio that I know I can go to and get some music that's brand new I never heard before.
Right.
And I just want to hear it. I mean, there's artists out there that I know are artists and they're great, but I don't like their flavor of music. I mean, Justin Timberlake's kind of in that realm. I like one or two of his songs, but he's not in that.
I'm gonna say that I was in that camp for a while, but I will tell you that his range has changed so much. There's some of his songs that I absolutely freaking love. And then others I'm kind of
going... He's got such a wide range. But he's a good singer and a good artist.
That's what I was going to say is...
I just don't... There's some
Justin
songs
Timberlake is very talented.
Yes.
He can sing. I may not be a fan of the type of music that he sings, but the man can truly sing. The same could be said for, like, early Christina Aguilera.
Yeah. Oh, she can sing.
That woman can sing.
Oh, yes, she can.
She has got a serious voice and can sing. I was not a big fan of the type of music she was singing. But you've got to recognize the talent is there.
Oh, sure.
Now, I will not limit artists to just singers. Like, I know some musicians that are fantastic. I mean, like Lindsey Sterling, I love her violin.
Yes.
Well, I will watch one of those.
Yeah.
But like good bassists, good drummers. I mean, you just blow my mind when I'm hearing a really good song.
You don't get really as well. I can't say you don't really get as much of that in rock music, because you've got those iconic rock guitar gods. You know.
Well, yeah.
The just outstanding guitarists, Eddie Van Halen, you've got Steve Vai, you've got Joe Satriani, that are just, are gods with a guitar.
Exactly.
I mean, they can sit with a guitar and just create sound that
they're gods
couldn't
with their
even,
weapons.
could not even imagine.
Well, they may not have the voice, but they got the fingers. I mean,
you get a lot of that on the countryside too.
Absolutely.
Just the good, truly skilled pickers. On the countryside, you had Chet Atkins, who was just an incredible guitar player. Luke Bryan is an incredible,
he can actually play.
Is a good guitar player.
I'm gonna forget people's names now.
Yeah, I know who I'm thinking of, and
who was I thinking of?
I've got so many different names flowing through my head right now that.
Well, I mean, we live in an age where we're fortunate enough to have real artists that are still mixed in with some of the marketed stuff that we're getting.
Yes.
Well, I mean, Slash was always the best. I mean, he's still the best in his era.
Well, I don't know about the best, but he's really good.
He's up there. He can make a guitar sing.
Well, he can, but I mean, the best is very subjective. I mean, the guitarist you think is the best may not be who somebody else thinks is the best. Who's right?
Right.
No, that's true. I mean, but you got to respect somebody who has
like I
said,
Slash is very, very good. A very good guitarist.
Well, I'm going to shift the mood for just a second. You've listened to Apocalyptica, correct?
The ones that cover,
they're cellists, but they cover freaking Metallica. The first one of our old friends introduced me to that, and I swear, I think for 3 days I listened to nothing
but cellos.
With them. They were amazing, and it's weird because you don't think again of those crosses. I mean, because you think of cellos as being just classical music, and they have no connection with rock whatsoever. I'm sorry. Have you listened to Enter Sandman by Apocalyptica? Come on.
Yeah, it's really good.
Oh my God, it'll blow your mind. And that's one of the things that I'm saying. Music it's a language of its own, and it doesn't matter what genre it is. There's so much power and so much influence in them, and I guess that's why I'm such a music nut. Maybe.
Well, and there's artists that, are in a whole other language that I love. I mean, the classic version is the Red Balloons song. You know,
99 Left Balloons.
You can watch it, you can listen to it in German. Right. And you're fine. And you love it.
And you still dance and wiggle in your chair.
Yeah.
I love it.
But, who's that other band I'm thinking of? Okay, I'll have to think about it later. It's a heavy metal rock band, and we were listening to it.
Rammstein?
Yes. Rammstein. Love them. I don't care if it's not in English. You love it. You love the beat. You love the feel.
Yes. You don't understand the words, but you can still feel it. You feel it with the music. The country guitar picker that I was thinking about, it wasn't Luke Bryan that I was thinking about. It was Brad Paisley.
Oh, he's amazing.
He's very talented. Oh
he can play. I mean, he's a great singer.
Oh, yeah.
But just sit and let him play.
Yeah.
I mean, he really, puts a lot of work and effort into, his guitar playing. And he is an excellent, guitarist.
Going back to the comment on covers and things, just because I'm sorry, every time we start talking about music, I automatically at some point go back to Prince. I am never going to get over that tribute that Adam Levine did.
I must have not heard it.
Yeah, I must have missed it.
Oh my God. We're going to go find it after this.
It's a music video, and Purple Rain. I'm going to tell you, watching him on guitar, I cried through the entire performance. And he did it on a late night show. I couldn't tell you which one it is right now. All I know is I heard a few bars of it somewhere, and so I went into work, and yes, I know, I was at work. Sorry, Ryan, I was busy doing stuff. But pulled up the music video and just sat there and bawled watching that video.
Okay,
because you could feel him.
I'm gonna go find
magic.
A couple things that we talk about that are obscure that maybe people not know. I will look up Apocalyptica's other videos,
Entertainment and all that.
And the Prince tribute. I will find that and I will link it in the video.
Yes.
Prince was such an amazing artist too, and I mean, we've lost so many of our good ones in the past decade, and it's hard. There are people all of us know, who when we hear that our artist has passed, you literally go into an absolute emotional funk.
Oh yeah,
I struggled with Whitney Houston's death, and I never thought that would. It wasn't like she had anything modern out at the time. She was part of my childhood. I'd listened to everything she put out, and I loved her. I hated seeing the lifestyle that she got into in later life.
Yeah,
but she was part of my childhood. Her music was such a huge part of experiences that I had, memories, friends, emotions. So when she died, I struggled. I struggled when Prince died. I struggled for almost a week, I think. And it was just random bursts of tears.
Like, because their music hits, I'm going to get all choked up there. Their music hits your soul so much.
Exactly.
It's like they're your best friend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he's been a big topic of discussion.
I'm holding back tears. Sorry.
With, Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie that came out. Back when Freddie Mercury died.
Yeah.
That hit a lot of people. And just, within the last couple of years, when David Bowie passed, that crushed a lot of people. Because, I mean, we've talked about, the different decades of music and how things change, from, the golden age of rock and roll in the 50s when everything jumped off to the flower power, anti-war, era of the 60s. And then, you've got, the 70s, when a lot of the heavy guitar rock came out and disco came out. And then that 80s, with, the synth, electronic and, punk really, jumped up. You had that sort of second British invasion where a lot of those British punk bands and stuff, crossed over into the glam and hair metal, into the grunge of the 90s.
Don't forget the boy bands in the 90s.
Well, but Bowie himself, he evolved over his entire career and changed his sound and
he loved to experiment, but everything he did, he tried to master.
Of music, that he did throughout his career that spanned decades.
But the thing about Bowie too that was magical was he didn't fit in any box anywhere, and he was good with that.
Yeah. And he embraced that.
It didn't matter.
Like I was saying, Freddie Mercury, was different. Lady Gaga, she embraced, her influences and ran with it And Bowie was the same way.
There's no reason you have to put an artist in a box and keep them the same way throughout their entire career.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the variety that makes them interesting.
Elton John's kind of the same way.
Right. But they give voice to people who feel like they don't fit.
Right.
And I think there's been more of that over the decades than people realize, but we're so much more open to embracing that, especially now. And that is one thing that's been good about the evolution of music and the evolution of the artists, because it has reached a lot more people in general and given them something to look up to and to cling to and to live for and to aspire to.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, we talk a little bit about the changes in time and the decades and things like that. And you can see a lot of the boundaries that were present in the music, the things that were actually censored back then. You couldn't talk about, you know, X, Y, or Z in the 50s, but then in the 60s, you kind of got away with a little bit of it there. And over time, we've seen that with the artists pushing those boundaries and letting people realize that, you know, hey, that weird little feeling that you have every now and again, or the weird little thought that pops in your head, you're not nuts.
It's okay to have.
Yeah, you're not the only one.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of people out there that think those same things or feel that same way.
And so you don't feel like you're just isolated and you don't feel like you're just weird. And I think that's something that has been a good part of the evolution of music.
It is a bit like in the younger years when you start feeling really vulnerable and stuff, and you hear a song that's about emotions and suicide and other stuff like that. And like, look, people do have these feelings. They do experience these thoughts, you know, and it's okay. We're all human.
Right. And you grow through it, but it's...
Hey, you work your way through it with music in a lot of ways.
And there are people that you can reach out to in your own community and your own family a lot of times. You may think you're alone, but you're really not. And I think that's been one of the best messages that I can think of over the evolution of music the last 20 or 30 years. We've had our feel-good music. We've had the pop and party music and stuff like that. We still do. We always
still
are
lots
going
of that.
to. Everybody likes to feel good. But at the same time, there are artists out there who are actually expressing themselves from the deepest parts of their soul and their spirit, and they're hurt. And it's
oh God,
so brave to put yourself out there anyway, because you know that there are other artists who tried to do that and they got ridiculed by other people because society at the time wasn't ready for it. But these days, you have so much more of a stage, not just for your art, but also for your humanity. And I think that's one of the reasons, you know, we were talking about some artists when they pass, the emotional attachment that we have to their music and the connection we make with them. I think that's the reason, you know, that some of these artists dying, it is a very personal loss.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So definitely. I mean,
it is like one of your good friends have passed away.
Yeah.
Because you felt that connection and that emotion.
Yeah, because they touched a part of you that lingers. I mean that contact stays with you. Because, you know, you've got those, you know, deep recesses that you kind of keep locked away or hidden away that you don't, you know, share or haven't been able to share, that certain artists, certain songs, or maybe
you even ignore it with yourself, but when you hear a song that touches your soul and says, hey, that's there.
Yes. Like I said, you know, when you're going through, you know, those, you know, formative years and, you know, you're feeling certain things, you know, feeling certain ways, starting to, you know, come to terms with who you are, you know, whether it's your sexuality or whatever. Like. And you get...
Or just your preferences. Just
some of those artists out there that
is compared to the rest of the world.
Help you to understand that it's okay to feel the way you do or be the way you are.
Well, those are the songs that I love the best, actually, are the ones that tell you, look, be who you are.
Yeah.
Screw everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I love those, and in that in itself makes me happy.
Well, if we're talking, you know, formative years there, you know, you most of the reason that kids shy away from expressing those things or they hide them deeply is because they're either afraid of them or they're embarrassed about them because they don't know.
Well, they're just confused.
Exactly. And, you know, I've always been a big protector and
You're a big
advocate
mama bear.
for kids. I always have been. And you know, case in point, I'm going to throw one out here that I know everybody says I'm so sappy, and that's okay. I'm okay with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Colby Kelly put out a song a few years ago called Try. And she put out a video.
Oh, I love that song.
Incredible song.
I can't get through the whole song without just bawling.
Crying.
And it's just one of those things that she just tells you, embrace who you are. You are who you are. Who cares what anybody else thinks about it? You know, you don't have to have everybody else's acceptance as long as you know that you're a good human being and you do the best you can every day. You don't need everybody else's approval about how you look, what you do, what you buy, what you like. You don't. You don't. And I think that that's one of the most powerful songs. I really wish to God I had heard that song back when I was a teenager, because I think I would have saved myself so much heartache and so much confusion and so much just energy spent on things and people that were just not necessary. You know, I missed out on a lot of really happy points because I was so worried about not fitting in or not having other people like me. And I didn't like myself because I didn't think I was allowed to, you know, and that's what I mean about some of the music that just wraps itself around you and you take it into your heart and you move from that. They actually affect you. They become a part of your soul in that moment. And again, that moment that you hear it, the second you hear the song, it takes you back to when you first heard it or something that was going on when you were listening to it.
That's like Sarah Bareilles' Brave.
Yes.
I cannot get it up. Every time I hear it, it makes me feel great. Right. At the same time, I want to cry. But it's like...
That's one of those, I mean, we were talking about, you know, what songs, you know, do you listen to put you in a better mood or help you, you know, kind of grind your way through a bad mood. You know, if I'm feeling, you know, kind of down or depressed, there are certain go-to songs. And, you know, Try is one of those. Brave is one of those.
Yes. That does it every time for me. I'm like, say what you want to say.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you want to sing it out loud because it's part of your soul.
Katy Perry, you've got Roar and Firework.
Oh, Roar, yes.
Roar, great song. The video is hilarious.
Or Fireworks.
Firework is a good one.
Gets you going.
You know, it gets you going. And there's, you know, some...
Those are the songs that remind me that you can be the best you are. Just get out there and do it.
Okay, I know I'm going to go back to Whitney Houston and everybody can just suck it.
Okay, go ahead. It's fine.
Her whole, you know, oh my God, now it blanked. I totally blanked for a second there.
It's okay.
Well, while you're thinking, I just remembered the other that I was thinking about that kind of goes into that group is Bob Marley.
Oh, I love Bob Marley's.
Three Little Birds. You never...
Oh my God!
I know you're about to fall down out of your chair. I apologize.
off the Legend album, I will play it for you.
Please do.
And I mean, it's one of those that I kind of lump into that group of songs that I will pull up, you know, and it just kind of helps me come back up out of the negatives,
right?
You know, and
the redemption song, that kind of thing. Or are you thinking of what? Trying to remember the name of the song. Dang it!
Of what?
Bob Marley songs. I was trying to remember which one it was that does get me going too, because something about his voice.
I can remember.
Well, I mean, you've got stuff like Stir It Up. Like I said, Three Little Birds. Well, his whole Legend album was
great. Yeah,
was fantastic. There were a lot of great songs, off that album.
Okay, let's throw something else out here. How about a favorite playlist that you play the most?
The most?
Yes.
Oh, geez.
How about yours? Whether it's at work or in the car or what do you
I used to have a CD that I burned myself of songs that were just, like, as I'm driving home from work, just play it because it always made me happy. Mm-hmm. And they included Alanis Morissette and Poe and, what was the other ones? There was some really random songs on there of all over the place. But it was, and I would say probably, I don't remember the name of the album. That whole, like, first Alanis Morissette album, I could put that in and listen to that on repeat and be fine. It doesn't matter. I just did.
Right.
I think it's because that was during my younger, like, high school years. That was the soundtrack of my life, basically, the weird emotional thing.
Well, I will say that probably the only thing that I should be listening to when I'm on the road here because of my road rage is probably Sarah McLachlan doing the Prayer of St. Francis. Because I don't know if you people understand here in DFW, just so you know, that woman has saved more of your lives than you know. Because I have serious road rage issues. Serious. Like, a lot of you who know me socially would never think that the stuff that comes out of my mouth in the car would ever happen. But then there are those of you who've been in the car with me.
So you keep the windows up.
I apologize. Because you see the demon that possesses me come out screaming and making all kinds of very strange faces. And I make up my own language. So when Sarah is on playing or singing her Prayer of St. Francis, I do that on repeat. There was actually a roommate of mine who introduced me to the song. Yes. Who was kind enough to actually record back to back that song over and over and over on a CD so I could pop it in the car while I was driving home because he knew that one of these days he was going to have bail money for me. And it worked.
Interesting.
I don't know where that CD is, unfortunately, so people be warned. Just saying.
We can make your own.
Yeah. Sorry. But how about you? What about a playlist
I've got an extended playlist that's basically just an eclectic mix of 80s stuff.
Yeah.
That bounces from ZZ Top to Def Leppard.
Oh, yeah.
To the Cars, to UB40, Roxette.
Oh, God, you're killing me.
A lot of Huey Lewis stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here is my current
some good winger
playlist that is ridiculous. It's To Be Human, like the song by, is it Sia? Or it's off the Wonder Woman soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing. So What by Pink. I love Pink.
Oh, I do too.
I will just go crazy.
I like the artist Pink. I don't like the color.
Yeah. I love
Again, Pink, Shake It Off by Taylor Swift.
Absolutely.
Head Like a Hole by Nine Inch Nails. For whatever reason, I can sing that at the top of my freaking lungs.
It's fun, though. I mean, and I don't know why. I like it, too. It's anyway,
Defying Gravity, the song from Wicked. Oh. I took him to see Wicked in the actual theater.
Yes.
Like the stage play. Mm-hmm. If you hear that song, you will never forget
it.
It's awesome. It's also one of those uplifting songs.
Cowpatty, you should be a musical all of your own. I'm just saying. I mean, that just goes right along with it.
And then I have West Side Stories tonight on here.
What did I just say?
I love musicals. I can't help it. I Want It Now.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
What I
was just saying, it's my extended playlist. If I'm in a rock mood, is basically all 80s.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of my go-to decade. Mm-hmm. Pardon me. There's a lot of, modern stuff. Like I said, a lot of my modern, two of my modern go-to bands are Disturbed and Godsmack.
Right.
I absolutely freaking love them.
Mm-hmm.
But my go-to decade would be, of course, the 80s. That's, my teenage years, growing up. And there's a lot of that. If I'm in a country mood, it's all going to be modern, more modern 2000 stuff.
Right.
Lady Antebellum, Luke Bryan, like I said, Brad Paisley, a lot of the modern stuff. I like the old school outlaw country. Mm-hmm. Like I said,
the ones that they have stories
and Johnny Cash. All of the great classic country stuff I love.
I sort of separate country in my head between the storytelling ones. Like the Duke, old, like,
I like the modern incarnation of country music where, the direction it's gone in.
Mm-hmm. Party country. I consider it like party country. Because country now does kind of like skirt the edge of pop music at times.
But Tim McGraw does both. Yeah. Because I sit back and I listen to some of his old stuff from the 90s, and I went through a major country thing in the early 90s. Major. I mean, I still had my grunge on a little bit, but I mean, Reba was just, oh my God, that woman,
Reba's just,
she is a goddess of her own.
Love Reba.
Yes, she's amazing as an artist, as a human being, as I just adore her. But I discovered her in the 90s. I know she was still around in the 80s and things like that, but the 90s
she's been around earlier than that, I think.
Was it?
I could be wrong.
She might have been. I
can't remember.
I think late 80s, but definitely, all through the 90s.
Well, I embraced her in the 90s, and she just spoke to me on so many different levels. And Dolly Parton at the same time. That's when I've known about Dolly, obviously. I mean, my God, my dad was a country music freak. Of course I knew about Dolly Parton.
One of my favorite older movies was 9 to 5.
There you go.
I would watch it all the time.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, I there was no way I could not know Dolly because my sister's name rhymes with one of Dolly's most famous songs. And so people would call her the wrong name all the time. So I knew who Dolly Parton was. But in the 90s, there was just a period of time that, again, we're going back to memories and feelings and everything else. Mm-hmm. She spoke to experiences that I was having at the time. And I still go back to those songs. There are still songs from that album, and I couldn't tell you the name of the album. But, I mean, I used to play that back to back all day long. And I'd sing every song, but I would bawl through half of it because she was speaking to my heart and speaking from my heart for me.
And I know for a fact that you, Mando, love Frank Sinatra. And you will play that. You'll get on a Rat Pack mood, and it will just be all day long of mellow Rat Pack music.
Well, and that's the thing is, it's not
Sammy
just
Davis Jr.
Frank, but the Rat Pack. I can
Dean Martin.
I could sit and listen, to Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, literally
all day long.
Yeah,
and I'm not offended by that. I
love that era of the great crooners,
right?
And Christmas rolls around, it's definitely Bing Crosby.
I started to say, if you don't say
Bing
that,
Crosby,
you've got to have Bing.
Absolutely.
Those, again, great, fantastic singers.
Oh, yeah.
Great voices.
Mm-hmm.
And they're such recognizable voices.
Absolutely.
That you hear Frank Sinatra come on, it's Frank. You know Dean Martin when you hear him.
I honestly don't know of a modern artist now that can sing like him. Like, off the top of my head. That has that crooner feel to him. Well, maybe... I'm trying to think of who.
Harry Connick Jr.
Yeah.
He's close.
He can
definitely has the inspiration
he can do that style. From that era. He can pull it off.
But there's not that many. I think he might be the only example I can think of right now.
Yeah.
Rod Stewart has kind of shifted over to where he's doing more, classical crooner style stuff.
He is an amazing artist. People don't give him near as much credit as he should get. But
and he was one of those I was thinking about, that was, big, 70s.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He's not the greatest looking dude,
right.
But the man can sing.
Oh, absolutely he can.
And it didn't matter, what he looked like because he could sing.
Right.
And...
Well, he was one of the lucky few that bridged that in the 80s. Because he still had some great music coming out.
He crossed over into doing some, some good rock stuff in the 80s.
But he was smart enough to be able to do that. And he had the right marketing people. He knew how to get into the 80s, and he lasted well. He's still making music. I haven't heard anything personally for a while, but I know that he's still out there.
There's a lot of artists like that.
He has kind of migrated over into doing, that nightclub style of music, that, Dean Martin did and Frank Sinatra did, and had transitioned from doing, rock into...
Sure.
Not to totally derail things, but there is that aspect of music. Like, there's certain artists and songs that are the iconic songs they know of. Maybe one or two huge hits. But they're still around doing music. Do you actually go and look for their music? Like, Sarah McLachlan... I know she's still doing music, but I maybe only know 2 songs from her. I was trying to think of one of the older artists. I know Papa Roach has been around for 25 years, but God knows I don't know their newest album.
Stuff, yeah.
I wonder, am I missing out sometimes? What am I missing that's not in the top 100?
Maybe.
Well, and on the Sarah side of things, I remember one of my roommates was a diehard Sarah McLachlan fan. Very happy about that because I got exposed to a lot of really cool stuff. But there was a point there where I think someone had made the comment that whenever she was saddest or going through her hardest times, like during her divorce, was when she made her most powerful and most popular music. So somebody at the time made some really horrible comment about somebody break her heart real quick. But that's a horrible thing to say, but there are musicians out there that they still do their music on the side. They still perform. They still travel and they do things, but they're doing smaller venues. They're not trying.
They're not trying to hit the charts
at this point.
Yeah.
They're just expressing themselves and doing what they do.
Well, yeah, because they've done that. You'll still hear about bands and stuff from the 80s that were doing coliseums, big arena rock, headlining massive arena shows that now just do sort of small venue stuff. Because they've been there, they've done it. They've hit the number ones. They've made tons of money,
maintaining their love of music.
And now, they're just doing it because they enjoy doing it. They enjoy performing. They don't feel like they have to do the big massive shows anymore.
Right.
So they just kind of bounce around and do these
smaller venues.
Venues.
We're seeing a lot of that up at the casinos and stuff like that. The Choctaw and what's this one that's up here in Ardmore? I can't think of the name of it.
Is it the WinStar?
Well,
yeah,
WinStar is up there, and Choctaw is up there, and we went up to. This has been a few years back, but we went up to the WinStar up in Oklahoma, and that's where I finally,
after many years,
got to see Frankie Valli, the Four Seasons in concert.
Really?
Got to see Frankie Valli live.
Venue, but it was Frankie Valli and his new band.
It was just fantastic.
That's so
and
great.
up at the Choctaw is where I finally, after decades, finally got to see Motley Crue live in concert.
Yeah.
Went, for my birthday.
Yeah.
She bought tickets.
I was like, I got tickets to Motley Crue.
Yeah.
It was great.
And it was like a week after my birthday, but it was
close enough.
Just amazing. I finally got to see one of my favorite, hair metal bands from the 80s. I have been a huge Motley Crue fan, since
when bands are in their heyday,
84,
it's hard to get tickets.
When their Shout at the Devil album came out, and I've been a huge fan ever since.
That's why I love. You used to go to the Aussie tour?
Ozfest.
Ozfest, yeah.
Yeah.
Ozfest was a great place to see bands you never could see individually. You could see multiple bands,
right?
And I just love doing that venue when you could, but it's hard to get tickets.
Well,
sometimes.
and there was it's been 12, 13, 14 years ago. They had this sort of Freedom Rock Festival that came through.
Oh, I love that.
We saw Styx in Kansas, and
for the first time. I think after that we saw Journey and Styx together individually, that blew my mind.
I mean, a lot of great bands that were touring together for this sort of Freedom Rock Festival that I didn't figure I would ever get to see.
No,
otherwise, and they showed up, and it was just.
If they come to town, you just got to take that opportunity. And see
y'all are my heroes, because I'm going to tell you right now that stuff's just too people-y for me. I just can't do.
Too many people.
Yeah, I've been to very, very few concerts in my life, and the ones that I have gone to were at the big venues, and I honestly couldn't appreciate the experience. Number one, because we were back in the nosebleeds, of course, because who the hell had the money for front seat tickets, but. Also, just
if you are in the front row, you're in the mosh pit, and you're squished and hot.
Well, I'm just saying we were so far out, but with the whole, just those larger venues, I think they ruin it for me. And I think the smaller venues would probably be something a little closer to what I'd be comfortable with.
Oh my God, what was that band we saw in way in Dallas? Was it?
We saw Typo Negative. Down at one of the clubs. It
was
one
a
of the Deep
small
Ellum
venue.
clubs.
It was the perfect venue because you could sit there and you saw their faces. I mean,
the one that I got to go to that was a small venue thing. I got to go see Toby Keith over at Billy Bob's. Over in Fort Worth. Nice. And that was a small enough venue. And it was still people-y, but it was still good enough that I could ignore all those people and watch Toby. And I'm going to tell you right now, there was a point where he was performing, and I don't even remember what song it was at the moment, but he trebled that voice and he stretched it out, and it vibrated my heart. And I was like, this is the kind of musical experience I am down for.
And probably your nether regions, but anyway.
Well, we're not going to talk about that. I will admit that might have been a consideration, possibly.
Well, yeah, there's a few concerts that, are in my head, for me, were just legendary concerts that were like once in a lifetime.
Sure.
Getting to see that I would probably never get to duplicate, ever again.
Ever, yeah.
One of those in the mid-90s was, and my father bought me the concert ticket.
Surprise.
And I practically begged him to go with me, but he wouldn't. And that was to go see George Jones live in concert.
Oh my gosh.
And that was just an amazing experience. Loved that. I finally got to see Motley Crue in concert. Like I said, a few years back, went up to Choctaw and saw them up there.
I generally feel like if you can see a band you really love, it doesn't matter how far in the nosebleeds you are, go see them. But at the same time, if you can get a venue that's less than 500 people, sitting, go no matter what.
Yeah.
You have to.
House of Blues in Dallas.
Oh, yes.
When I got to go see Manowar.
Manowar came to town. They never come to the United States, ever.
Favorite heavy metal band.
Oh, wow. That's
been
awesome.
a massive fan, bought every single album.
And they're what country do they
since
usually
the
concert in? Germany or
late 80s? I mean, their earlier albums, were early 80s. Even I think their first album was 79 or 80.
And I knew this, and I had put an alert on my phone to please tell me anytime they come to the United States, and they did, and I went,
fan. And she found out they were coming to the House of Blues, and I got to go see them live in concert.
oh my God, you're like
we'll
10
probably
feet away.
never get to do that again.
Yeah.
Because they mostly tour Europe.
Yeah.
They never tour the U.S. Almost
because
never.
when they first started putting out their albums, they were really, they were heavier than like the standard 80s hair metal stuff. They were heavy and couldn't get airtime on regular 80s rock stations,
right?
So they didn't get a lot of radio time. So they started touring over in Europe where they could get airtime.
That's a particular band where I would just classify their music as epic. They have that epic story and like Lord of the Rings type epic, fantasy,
epic,
sound.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have to find some videos for.
I'd play more stuff for you, but yeah. And those are some of and that stand out in my memory as like the legendary concerts I've been to that I'll never get to do again.
Yeah. But at least you've done them.
The one
we saw Linkin Park in concert, and that was a fantastic concert.
Wow.
That was so fun. Oh my God, they really rocked the stage on that one. I just loved it.
I mean, just energy. They were, all over the stage,
was over
bouncing
at the
around,
American Airlines Center, I think.
At the American Airlines Center.
But I honestly, the one that does point out to me is the Typo Negative. Typo Negative concert. Mm-hmm. Because, and this is specifically ground in my memory, Pantera showed up.
Yes.
And they were sitting
They came in the back and were sitting up
watching,
like in a balcony section
and I could see them. And this was before, what's his name? This was before Dimebag.
This was before Dimebag.
He was there.
This was back,
And I was like,
early 2000s. And they're sitting back in sort of the balcony,
I was geeking out.
An upper, deck balcony area. And Philip Anselmo is up there heckling Peter Steele from the back of the venue during the concert.
It was so awesome.
Because they know each other, they've toured together. Right. Typo had opened for Pantera on some of their tour dates, so they knew each other. And I mean, they're just back and forth heckling
and we're like
during
on a
the concert.
Sideline, like in between, like we could see both their faces in the back and their faces in the front, and it was the best.
It was amazing.
The best memory I have.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Well, like I say, part of your life and your memory and your thoughts that you hold dear. It's all about the music.
Oh yeah.
All about
because it does. It makes a connection. It connects to your soul. Plain and simple.
Music's awesome.
Music is just that awesome.
Yes.
Always.
And we all speak it.
Yep.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what language.
Right? What ethnicity, what culture, none of that. No. Everybody speaks music in one way or the other.
Oh, and I will llisten to some cultural music. Oh my God. I love listening. I love listening to Native American music and some Hispanic, Mexican music. Like it sings to me, even though I understand no words whatsoever.
I need to expose you to some Hawaiian and some Chamorro music.
I'm down with that.
My mother has got entirely too many cassette tapes and CDs and everything.
Just for a lesson for everybody listening. If you're from Guam, it's your Chamorro.
Don't.
Do not.
What? I didn't say anything.
Mm-hmm. Cowmando has this really bad habit of making fun of me and my heritage in the most loving way, really, truly. But every time somebody posts something on my Facebook about Chamorro, he says that it's churros.
No.
Or cinnamon or something.
Yeah, a churro or a Camaro. Or my personal favorite, a Guamulan.
It's a very Star Trek feel to it.
But yes, I know it's actually Chamorro, but
I know. I love him dearly, and he I know that he makes fun of me with affection. So
yes.
If it was malicious, then I'd have to take him out.
Well,
we'd have steak for dinner.
That's because I'm a big Star Trek fan.
I know.
I know.
Like it's the not Romulans,
Guamulans, yes.
No, not at all. I actually do have a sense of humor, despite my road rage. So,
and
despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
on that pumpkin note,
I think we could wrap this up. Again, I'm Cowpatty.
I'm Cowmando.
And thank you for joining us tonight. And if you love and liked our commentary, please subscribe to the channel and ring the cowbell.
Yes. And thank you again to our guest Rayne for joining us on this.
Of course.
Thank you for having me.
Little musical rant.
Now I have to seek out this cowbell.
Yes.
More cowbell.
You can never have too much cowbell.
That's right.
Nope.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Catch you next time.